Hi, everyone. I hope you're having a great day so far. I'm part of the DC Startup Week organizing team this year. Thank you so much for joining us today and for this week. Just as a quick way of background, DC Startup Week is a 5-day conference every September focused on building the startup community. We want to give a quick shout out to our title sponsors, Next by Shulman Rogers, Insperity, WIS, and Technology Rivers. If you have any questions throughout the talk, you could feel free to put them in the general chat function within Zoom here. We just ask that you put question in all caps in front of your question so that the panelists will be able to know that it's a question. So we're so excited to have Steve Winter, president of Brotman Winterfried Communications, who will also be our moderator for today. We also have Larry Rosenfeld, founder and CEO of Sage Communications, David Nellis, principal at Return on Investment, Cary Hatch, CEO of MDB Communications, and last but not least, we have Beth Johnson, founder and CEO of RP3 Agency, who will speak today on the relevance of ad agencies for startups in 2020. So please join me in welcoming our panelists to the DC Startup Week stage.
Jenna, thanks. Thanks for the intro. Yep, I'm Steve Winter. In total frankness, I am president of Brotman Winterfried Communications, but our claim to fame is that we are a Sage Communications company. We've been part of Sage for the last 9 years. So, having Larry on the panel will provide a couple of different perspectives. So what I would like to do at this point is let everybody kind of introduce themselves, reintroduce themselves, and tell a little tiny bit about their company. I'll really actually start with mine, Brotman Winterfried. We are the sports, entertainment, B2C, and special events division of Sage. And Brotman Winterfried has been around in one form or another for over 40 years. Beth, why don't you take the next one?
Sure. I am Beth Johnson. I'm CEO and founder of RP3 Agency. We're an integrated agency. We're best known for strategically led creative, and basically that means that we help clients find their purpose, express that in a compelling way, and connect it to their audiences to drive business value. And we work with a number of brands in this region that you might recognize, like Giant Food and Norfolk Southern, which is a Class 1 freight rail company, Children's National, which is one of my favorites. And just 10 years ago, well, actually 11 years ago now, I was a startup. So we founded the company in 2009 when, I like to say marketers were really facing a transformation. And so we were kind of built to meet the needs of modern marketing today. So basically that means we are fast, nimble, flexible, and we operate at the speed of culture.
Cary.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cary Hatch. I'm CEO and brand advocate with MDB Communications. We elevate the profile and stature of brands, causes, and products that matter. We also believe that we help their brands punch above their weight. So it's not always about having the biggest media budget or the biggest budget period. Sometimes if you don't have a bigger hammer, you need a sharper nail. So driving success is part of our DNA. I feel like I've always been in this business, even as a young person. I was always advocating for something. I was in the pep club. I was a pom-pom at the University of Maryland, and now I'm an advocate for the industry. So anything we can rally around is really something that's a delight for us. We launch brands. We help people that are in need, particularly turnarounds, and even in times of crisis. So we're delighted to be part of the conversation because we always love a challenge.
David, you're on board.
Oh, hi, I'm David Nellis. I'm one of 2 principal owners of ROI, Return on Investment. I was never a pom-pom cheerleader at the University of Maryland. I tried out, but my skirt was too long, and that was that. ROI, I could just repeat what Beth and what Beth and Cary said. We all have our own way of describing our agencies. We're a strategic marketing communications agency. We work with brands that have been established 40 years. We work with startups that are trying to find themselves. One of the things that we are very deep into, and I know these other folks are as well, is research. anybody looking at me can tell quickly that I'm not brand new to this. And when we started, there was a lot less research and a lot more kind of intuition. You know, we think we know who these people are. We think we know what they have to sell. We think we know to whom they have to sell it. You know, let's come up with a great line, that kind of thing. And that account planning and the voice of the consumer, and the consumer can be a government consumer. We do a lot of B2G, B2B, and B2C work. That's very important. And in my lifetime and in my professional lifetimes, that has become more and more important. So the research and the analysis first, so that we, this is probably not an appropriate thing, but you know, ready, fire, aim is what a lot of clients want to do. They're in a hurry and they want to get going. And we are in the ready, aim, fire business, and we are nimble and we move fast, but you got to be sure you're right before you go ahead and commit the first dollar. So we work with clients locally, regionally, nationally, and internationally, a couple of Fortune 500s, a bunch of small folks you never heard of, and a lot of people in the middle.
Cool. Thanks, David. Larry, on to you.
Well, I have a little bit of a different story. You know, when I got out of college, I was expecting to get this great job offer for, you know, because I had a BS in marketing and I was ready to go, and I ended up as the office boy at Stackig, Sanderson and White Advertising in 1973. But about 11 years later, I owned the company, and about 12 years after that, I sold the company to Monster.com. And so it's been a great career. You know, I'm ready for Steve Winter to come over and take over for me, but he hasn't stepped up to it yet. Still trying to get more experience.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Get those training wheels off, Steve.
Yeah, okay. I hear you.
But here at Sage, you know, David Gordetsky, who was on a few minutes ago, and I founded the company in 2004. And it's been a great rapid growth, you know, because we offered something a little bit different. We took a different approach to marketing. It was always about integrated marketing, combining advertising and branding and PR and direct marketing and lead generation and demand generation, and now social media. And we really honed that practice into a really good place right now. And our clients, you know, when we first opened the doors, you know, our clients were companies like AT&T and K2M Medical, which is a huge company on Leesburg now, and government agencies like the FAA and NIH. So we were able to like just really get moving fast. We never took a loan out. We always were, you know, self-financed, and we you know, just grew because of our reputation and the work that we did. And today, you know, we're working with some really great companies, including AT&T still, Splunk, NVIDIA, names that you read about in the business section, and that you may not hear about on a day-to-day basis because they're tech companies. But we also work with companies like, you know, various nonprofits and associations. And one of them we're working with, I want to just do a plug right now, is DC Jazz Festival, which we launched back in 2005 and built that brand into it's a very powerful brand too. They're considered one of the top jazz festivals in the whole country now. And it's going to run from September 24 to 28. So you can go online and register now. But to sum it up, you know, we work with a lot of different kinds of companies, but we're best known for working with tech-based companies selling very complex solutions and products to customers who make very sophisticated buying decisions. And in order to do that, we have to develop the right marketing strategy, the right messaging, the right outreach programs, and really, really base the results on they have to be measurable results. And this is what we're known for. And we're able to actually keep our clients a really long time. You know, we have clients that go back to the founding of the agency. So we must be doing something right. That's about it. Oh, and by the way, you know, in this day today with the coronavirus, and it's changed the way we all work. And, you know, we're in an agency environment. You're used to collaborating, used to running down the hall to your creative director, to your copywriter, or to your media director, and you grab everybody, get into a meeting, you know, and solve a problem for a client. But, you know, you can't, it's harder to do that now. And somehow me, who 8 months ago was totally against telework, I am the biggest proponent of telework there is now. Our people are more productive, more efficient, and producing better results than we ever have. And I'm really proud of everybody we have. We have really awesome people, both on the PR side and social media and the marketing side. And, you know, we're just, you know, having a great time here. Thanks.
Cool. Well, as you guys can tell, we know each other, and we can sit here and tell stories and tell lies about the industry for a while. And in fact, we may do a little bit of that at first, but as the panel goes along, we're here to basically tell you guys how ad agencies today in the 21st century can be relevant to what your companies need. What I'd like to do is go around the panel a little bit and have you guys tell us, how do you view the state of the Washington ad agency, Washington DC ad agency, versus some of the other hotbeds of advertising? Beth, why don't we start with you?
Well, look, I think that our industry is a reflection of the culture around us. And, you know, Larry just mentioned DC Jazz Fest, and I think our region has become a hotbed of creativity and culture on many different levels. And so I feel like that has been, you know, fuel for our industry in the past decade. So there was a time when I was growing up in the business, a young account executive, that, you know, this was kind of perceived as a stodgy old government town. And those days are long, long behind us. And now we, you know, we have been able to attract and retain talent from all over the country in this region. And I feel like we are as competitive with any other agency across the country. So I don't think that there are those divisions anymore that used to be, my opinion.
Great. Cary, what's your take on that?
So we don't think creativity has a certain zip code or area code. So we've benefited from that as well. The ability to have people out on the West Coast as part of our social media team, people in New York on the production side, people in Chicago, and certainly in Washington. As a someone who's hopelessly in love with what I do and the industry, I just want to level set. You know, there was a time, as Beth alluded to, that I think we had a bit of an inferiority complex. You know, we weren't seen as a player, and now I feel not only are we a player on a national stage, we're a player on a global stage. A lot of that changed with the Obama administration. When you think about cause marketing, CSR, and a number of other things, that really changed the dynamic. But here's a stat that I want everybody to know. Again, as a proud member of an advertising communications crew, is that $30 billion is the economic impact in the District of Columbia from advertising agencies. 20% of the jobs in the district are produced by the advertising agency.
Now, Cary, I wonder why that statistic is top of mind for you.
Yeah, well, you know, I'm loud and proud. I'm loud and proud, and I'm not embarrassed by who we are, what we do, and what we bring to the party. Because when you think about global communications, a lot of eyes are on Washington these days.
In more ways than one.
Yeah.
Yeah. And David, your background comes from some of the big brands that ad agencies used to jump all over here in Washington, like Giant Food, car dealerships, Geico. In that same vein, why don't you talk about some of the local advertisers?
Well, you know, I think the local pot that brews here is still a great resource for us and for, you know, generating new business and business development. And there's now, I mean, you know, you talk about the old days. Nobody wants to hear about the old days, really. The old days were old. With the advent of the internet and social media and all of that, you know, the things that everybody said would ultimately be bundled and be of equal importance are now of equal importance. I mean, there isn't a campaign I can think of for a client we have that doesn't have equal measure of social media and digital marketing impact, along with radio and TV. You know, the Wall Street Journal had an article about a year and a half ago that said that millennials, who are a large target audience for, you know, certain of our clients, millennials listen to more broadcast radio than they spend time on social media. Now, I don't know if that's still true, but that blew my mind because, you know, the new thing is always the shiny object that everybody reaches for. So all of a sudden, everybody had to have a social media arm and all of that. And I think for a while, we took our eyes off the ball, that radio and TV are still unbelievably powerful, and that it's a media mix that really works. But as far as what the other folks were talking about, I mean, we have clients here, we have clients, you know, we have a Fortune, I guess they're a Fortune 600 company out in Seattle. We have clients in LA. What's happened is, I think we did have an inferiority complex. Larry's never had one. Stacking was, but the rest of us might have. Larry always knew where to find business, but I think we did feel like Washington was kind of a backwater, you know, marketing town, and now, you know, I mean, I no longer have that feeling at all, and I don't have a problem. I mean, listen, in my world, if you have 100 good leads and you have 10 substantive conversations and you end up with one really good client, that's a hell of a hit rate. And I don't fear going up against anybody or doing anything at all, because we can get the work done. And I know that's true for Cary and Beth and Larry and anybody else that might be on this call. So we rock.
David, you said that we were always able to find business, but actually we never did any marketing. The business always came to us because of our unique positioning in the marketplace. All the other, back when I started in the business, all the other agencies were really concerned about consumer and retail. We're the only real B2B tech agency. That was before the term tech even existed. And that's what we were doing back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. And that's what we're doing here at Sage now. You know, we work with really big brands in the technology world. And it's really, we really appreciate that business because it comes from California or it comes from Chicago or LA. And we're getting these accounts and that oftentimes we're the only other agency that these companies are using. And that says a lot about how important the Washington marketplace is. But where all the big money is being spent in Washington is government right now. And it just so happens that we're a lot of our clients are kind of focused on that government market because government never stops spending money. Thank God. Well, and by the way, we do work with a lot of government agencies. You know, we had a big 5-year campaign for TSA on pre-check. And so, you know, this is what's been driving a lot of our revenue. And,
well, I want to jump in though, because it's startup week, and I do want to say, I mean, we really welcome, you know, inquiries from folks who are just starting up. I like helping new businesses find their voice and find their target, and you know, and be spot on, and not waste their energy and their resources, you know, kind of spinning their wheels. And yeah, I mean, listen, I always have taken my hat off to you because you were always nailing it. And I knew people were flowing your way, and you could spell tech before I knew it started with a T, but it does start with a T, doesn't it? No. Yes. Okay. No, but you know, for folks listening in, I mean, we would love, you know, we love the opportunity to help a new business stand itself up, find its voice, and reach out to its target audience. And that's, you know, it's fun.
I can remember when Larry's only competition was KSK.
Yeah.
So Karen Kennedy was early on in this thing, but you're last man standing, Larry. So my hat's off to you. But I can remember back in the day, back to Stacking Sanderson and White and Henry Kaufman and Cal Merrick and Salen and Earl Palmer Brown. Back to a time when J. Walter Thompson, Ogilvy, and Ketchum were ad agencies, not PR firms. So it was a different time, but from that, it was an inspiration for me to take on the clients that we have now, including the DC Lottery and Roy Rogers, which was an Earl Palmer Brown account for many years, and things like Chevy Chase Trust and now Prince George's County. So you all have been an inspiration to me, and the people that came before me were also an inspiration as well.
Yeah, that's a great point, Cary. I remember when I first got into the business and joined the ad club, you know, to me, these guys were like the gods of the local industry. And, you know, I would hear names, you know, including yourself. Oh, I got to meet these people. I want to really know who these people are all about. But actually, before we move into some of the stuff that you guys talked about, I just want to jump back to the 70s and 80s, back at the time when the only four modes of
wait, is that the 1970s or the 1870s? How far back do you want to go?
1770s. It was all print, radio, TV, and transit, and nothing else. Who wants to talk about those days real briefly? Then we'll transition into today. Go, David.
I mean, I can tell you, back in the mid 80s, I was the chief marketing officer for two store chains that have disappeared, Garfinkel's and Raleigh's. Raleigh's was kind of the Barney's of Washington, and Garfinkel's was definitely the Bergdorf's of Washington for 100 years. And they ended up getting LBO'd out of existence in the early 90s. But we had the third largest marketing budget in that arena in the city. And we had, you know, massive multi-page inserts in Washingtonian and the Post and all of that every day. And yeah, we really only had to concentrate on those four media, really. I mean, we did some grassroots stuff and all of that. And it was, listen, when the internet became a something, you know, we were having consultants come in to explain the difference to us between the information superhighway, the World Wide Web, and the internet, you know, and then they'd walk out of the room and we go, what the hell did that guy say? So, I mean, we were right there at the turn, but the internet has changed everything. I mean, we were early on into email marketing. We were and I am a left-wing Democrat, but we were the first digital marketing firm hired by the National Republican Senatorial Committee when Bill Frist was the chairman. And we did all their fundraising and e-blasting for 2 years. May God forgive me.
Well, you know, in the 90s, of course, you know, as you guys are saying, computers changed everything. At first, the computers just helped us do a better job of research and analysis and tracking. And we really had no idea, you know, how computers were going to work as media outlets. On October 27th, 1994, AT&T paid $30,000 for placement of the first banner ad to be placed on a website on what was the precursor of Wired. And of course, that changed advertising on the computer forever. Beth,
Sure.
Do you want to kind of tackle that a little bit?
I don't know is there a question in there? I mean, I would say that our business, so I started RP3 11 years ago. The business that I operationalized 11 years ago and the business that I run today is entirely different. And it changes every minute of every day. I feel like the one thing about our industry that changes is consumer behavior. And we study consumer behavior, what they do, what they think, what they feel, how they behave. And so, I mean, when I reflect back on my upbringing in the industry, many of you were the gods of the industry when I was coming up, and I was learning from you and listening to you all speak. You know, I remember a day where we would do focus groups, sit behind the glass and pat ourselves on the back when we came out of that with some brilliant campaign. And we were just saying, look how great it worked. Now, you know, everything is done in real time. We're really, you know, every one of us is operating in a world of change and consistently having to pivot and adapt. And especially right now during the coronavirus, I mean, we have our strategy team monitoring 12 different insight inputs and trends. We're looking for opportunities for clients to seize every day. You know, clients have to speak in a language that is culturally appropriate and relevant every minute of every day, or else there are repercussions. And we've all seen when that happens, when it goes wrong. Our job is to make sure that it doesn't go wrong for our clients and that they seize those opportunities that can really enhance their brand and their purpose and their business value. So everything in our industry has changed, and it will continue to change, which is why I love this industry so much, because it is not boring. And so all of you out there who are starting your own businesses, just know you're going to be on for a wild ride.
Yeah, okay, let's next talk about like the nature of media outlets. Since the dawn of time, all credible media outlets honored that indisputable separation of editorial and advertising. If you wanted to do a story in Washingtonian or the Washington Post, it didn't really matter how much money you spent in advertising. Their editorial was not going to guarantee you coverage. Same with TV and radio news. Now, there were always cross promotions. So when we were doing a soccer tournament, we could go to the Washington Post and do a promotional buy with the understanding that we would get coverage. But that was more the exception than the rule. Nowadays, there's a lot more blurring of the lines where, you've got all this pay-per-play and all of these, all these bloggers that are charging for their content. And how do you guys see those changes impacting our ability as marketers? So let me turn that over to Cary.
So I still think there's a role for what we call a marketing architect, someone who understands all those disciplines and how to bring them together in a meaningful way to the benefit of the client for brands that they want to advance in the marketplace. The other thing I would add to your roster are the consultancies. It's the McKinseys and the IBMs and the Deloittes. All of a sudden, they become part of what we used to call in the last several years frenemies. Whether it's publishers or in-house agencies or perhaps some of these consultancies, finding your lane and finding what you can contribute to your clients is key to success. Back to what Beth was saying, success is defined differently virtually every other day. I can remember early on in the industry, there was something called image advertising. Wasn't that a beautiful thing? Nobody gave a damn about ROI. Now it's like, oh, it's not an annual juxtaposition of what we've accomplished. It's not a quarterly or a monthly or even a weekly. It's what have you done for me today?
Right.
I'm sorry, last hour you delivered this. But in that lies opportunity. The ability to understand sentiment with consumers, understand what those emotions are, look at the opportunities in the marketplace and optimize a campaign, to David's point, to make every dollar well spent. So it's really crazy. We're in a sea of opportunity, a sea of frenemies. It's not for the faint of heart, that's for sure. I was thinking back on how many economic downturns we've all lived through. Mine pretty much started the year that I acquired the company after being an employee for 6 years. That fall in October was Black Friday. And then it hit off a series of different things. We went to the 1990 recession. That was a fun one. Y2K, that was another downturn. Dot-com boom and bust, that was a delight. 9/11, anthrax, that's what's special to me because we were handling a lot of direct mail at that point, 60 different tests for National Geographic. The Great Recession, and of course there's what I would call the garden variety sporadic government shutdowns, and now the pandemic. So my point is, if you can live through this, you can live through anything.
Brilliant.
As long as you don't look back like that, I'm going to leave this session and go kill myself. Are you kidding? That's bad.
Let's remove all the sharp objects from David's kitchen.
Oh my God.
What's disturbing to me mostly, there is definitely a different business model today than there was even 10 years ago. We started out with our biggest campaigns were print, just, in 2000, the mid 2000 aughts. And, today, we see hardly any print, and a lot of our clients don't even have real advertising budgets like they used to. When I was coming up in the business, even back in the 70s and 80s, to spend $500,000, in a campaign was nothing. But, today it's like pulling teeth to get money from because they don't believe in it. They believe that it can be done internally, or it can be done on the cheap, and everything is, dependent on the data that they get back. Now, I agree about that. Everything should be measured. But, I would really like to see a time when people start believing in advertising again like they used to, when you can launch a new product or a new company and you had a rollout plan that included everything, PR and advertising and events and direct marketing and everything. And, I just don't see that as much anymore.
Well,
You know,
Larry,
right now,
Larry, you're bringing up such a great point about the things in this industry that in my mind haven't changed, and there are some of them, and one of them is really at the heart of what you're saying, and it's that powerful brands have created that emotional connection between their audience and the organization in a compelling way, and that those creative ideas that bring that to life, that is something that will never go out of style. And I think really smart marketers know that. And if you look at some of the best brands today, they're the ones that are still doing the work that you're missing. So great marketers still know that.
I want to, you know, what we encounter, and I'm interested to hear what the rest of you guys say, regardless of the size of the company, you know, whether it's a senior VP of something who's in charge of a budget or you know, a four-store retail chain or something, we're dealing with two kinds of people that see money put into marketing as either an expense or an investment.
Yeah.
And if you see it as an expense, you're going to cry and whine over every dollar spent because, you know, or because that's your nature. And it's just like investing. My whole theory is that doctors, lawyers, and CPAs have to go get special certification in order to do what they do. But regardless of what any of us has achieved, you don't have to go to marketing school to become a marketer. I got a master's degree in American history, and when the bottom dropped out of the history biz, I went and got a job in advertising in 1970-something. And we encounter that regardless of the size of the client, you know, the client size with which we're dealing. I don't know if anybody else feels that way, but it's either a very timid soul who doesn't, you know, is afraid to get yelled at by the, you know, the person sitting in the office above, or somebody who says, let's do it, because the only way we're going to find out is to do it.
Well, this brings up a great transition to the next thing I want to talk about, and that's really to the benefit of pretty much everybody in our audience right now, is how does a startup, how does a young emerging company engage agencies like ours effectively? Who hasn't spoken about? Cary, you want to hit that one?
So most of our business is referral business, back to what Larry was saying. So, you know, talking to people that have been in the end zone with an agency partner is a good place to start. Everybody's doing a Google search and what have you. I'll put a plug in here for being a 4A's agency. The American Association of Advertising Agencies is a wonderful credential that I'm delighted to have on our roster. But look for agencies that understand who you are, what you're trying to accomplish, have demonstrated success. Category experience, I would say, critical for startups. Some of the folks we helped in the .com era, that was very important to them that we had done that before. Because you got to think about people that understand what I call low cost, no cost advertising and marketing. What can we invest in right now that will generate revenue so you can reinvest in the future? So those are the things I'd want to start off with.
Beth, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's challenging for startups because obviously every penny counts when you're starting a new business. And so engaging an agency can be kind of an overwhelming just consideration for sure. One of the things that I would advise startups to think about is really, you know, prioritize where you think you can get the biggest impact from an outside perspective. So generally that is, you know, engaging an agency to do the work that's harder for you to do yourself. So really looking at your business objectively, helping you understand your customer and how do you connect and engage that customer in an efficient way. And to be honest, like when we started our business, we weren't really built for startups because we were working with very large brands that had bigger budgets. But over the years, as we have evolved our business, we actually launched a product in 2018 called Content Lab. And through that product, we have been engaging with a lot of different startups because it's a really efficient, we have something called the sprint strategy that kind of helps get to the heart of the assignment really quickly. And then we have these quick and nimble, efficient in-house production resources and connection planning teams that kind of operationalized really quickly. So it's a much lower budget alternative to going through kind of the big comprehensive project that a Fortune 500 company would be able to afford. So I think you have to find, and there are a lot of partners out there, that a lot of freelance teams and a lot of people who work together collaboratively that are also really good options for startups if a full service agency isn't the right fit for you. So that's another path that you can take and still gain that outside perspective that I think is so valuable when you're starting a company.
And that's a perfect transition to the next point I was going to bring up, and I'll throw this one to David. Is there a role? I mean, we've all been there. We all work with small companies and large companies, and some of our companies have grown from small companies into large companies. But is there still a role for that boutique agency, kind of piggybacking on what Beth just discussed?
Well, we are a boutique agency. ROI is, we have 6 people under one roof. We've been around since 1996, and the way going back, you mentioned Abramson Ehrlich Mains. I was president and COO of Abramson Ehrlich Mains for 4 years, and this is right when computers were beginning to have real impact, particularly in the creative area. But we had, new computers at that point. I think it was I don't even remember what it was. It was a little box with, with gray type and everything. It was terrible. But we had to have computers. We had 50 people there, and which is, a good sized shop from Washington. But honest to God, on any given day, if 25 of them hadn't come into work, it wouldn't have really affected anything. And when Elliot and I, my partner and I, started ROI, we said, if we have fewer, better paid people with always leading edge equipment, supporting them, can we get more done? And that's exactly how we've run our business for the past almost 24 years. If we have 6 people on salary, but if you brought everybody into one room that works for or with ROI on a regular basis, it would number over 250, because we have partnerships and relationships that go back those 23 years. So that, all the work gets done. So there is a way to do it. I mean, my hat's off to all these guys who've done it a different way. We found that this was just right for us, and we found people that are reliable, even though they're under contract and not under our roof. They deliver, and we turn on a dime and deliver a nickel's change.
Yeah, and that's really how a lot of boutique agencies have to survive today. And I do want to talk about all the different divisions that agencies now have to incorporate. But first, I'd like to address a question from Leon Peace, who asks, how can I best do it myself until I can earn enough to afford you? Larry, you want to take a crack at that?
Steal ideas. In reality, it's hard to do it yourself, truthfully. The best creative, the best campaigns come out of collaborative efforts with a lot of different people from different disciplines within the agency. And when you don't have that, you can only see things in one dimension, and then you lose out on a lot of opportunities. I've been fortunate to be able to work with a lot of startup companies over the years. Back in the heyday of the 90s, I was literally getting a new client every day. I would use the same proposal and just change the name, and it was great.
Search and replace.
Yeah, everybody had the same problem. So, but I've been lucky, but every once in a while you hit on that one company that starts out with, like, this one company I was working with had 12 people, but they just got a lot of venture funding. That's what you need to do, is figure out how to position your company to get that money that you can then put into marketing. A few years ago, a friend of mine and I came across these 2 guys that had a product, and they were both working in government agencies, and they were making this thing in the basement of their house at night. And my friend and I both put in $50K, and we built a brand, we built a website, we did all the PR, we started positioning them as a leader before there was even a real company. And this is what you have to do. You have to always think not what you are today, but what you're going to be 3 years down the road. And this is how you position yourself. So this company positioned themselves so wonderfully that they got this really big investor to come in. the big investor basically bought me out and then took it public in Australia, like literally 3 years after it started. And I just got out of it, but it was a great experience working with a startup from the ground up, where they bring the products into my office and they're putting them together. They're trying to figure it out, but using our experience, and the effort of all the people in my PR department and my creative department to make this brand really powerful. And we did just that. And, I got a lot of personal value out of it because I just cashed in on my stock. But I just think it's very few people have that ability to experience that. It goes back to, not to bore you guys, but, in the mid 90s, like I got a call from a company and outside of BWI, and there were like literally 16 or 17 people, and they needed everything. And we built the brand, we launched them, and using every discipline within marketing communications. And the company is Ciena, C-I-E-N-A. You may hear them on the radio these days, but it was an incredible, when we launched them at this trade show, that booth was so packed because of the creative ideas we had to bring people to the booth. Were really good stuff. And, but the company had an open mind in terms of allowing us to spend their money, like drunken sailors. But, it worked, everything worked. And 2 years after we launched them, they had the biggest IPO on NASDAQ history. So, this is a case where if you spend your money the right way, you have the right product, your agency understands what you do and what your needs are and can deliver on that, then I think it works out for everybody.
Yeah, I would
add to that you need an agency partner to realize your aspirations. Outside counsel on who and what you can be in the marketplace is critical no matter what you do. So that aspirational partner is key. We helped launch what's a reverse logistics company that was later purchased by eBay. But if you don't have that partnership early on, you're going to fall short. So I would encourage you to begin the dialogue with agencies like ours to see who's willing to be a player and who understands where you want to go.
Let me just say one more thing, okay? One of the things that companies who are selling products anyway, they need distribution channels, and they often don't consider the channel as an audience, but you really need to do that. We have a division here at Sage that is focused on using money called MDF market, it's marketing funds basically that are given by a big company, tech company in California, and they give the money to these companies around here to market to the government. And this is a really interesting part of our business now. It's really growing very fast because, we're helping the resellers, we're helping the distributors, and we're helping the manufacturers use that money efficiently and effectively. Where in the old days, all they would do is buy T-shirts and hand them out to people. Now they're using the money for, and getting real results for it.
I want to give some practical advice to Leon, who asked the question, because I remember it wasn't that long ago that I was a startup, and I know, making that outside investment can be very daunting. So I feel like you have really 3 options, and I agree with the panel that it's not ideal to do it yourself for a bunch of different reasons. But one option is to raise the capital, as Larry said, and invest properly in your marketing and in your brand, and it'll be the best investment you've ever made. The other option is to, find a contractor who can play that role for you on an efficient basis. And then the third is to find an agency that's excited enough about your vision and your mission that they are passionate about it as well. And I think that's the great thing about all of us on this panel. We're all independent agencies. So if we fall in love with a client that has a great aspirational vision, there's no reason we can't partner with them and find a way to make it work. but it is a challenging place to be when you're, sitting there as a startup looking at a balance sheet and you need to make this investment, but it's a real, I understand because I remember being in that seat not that long ago.
Great points, everybody. Appreciate that. One thing that we all agree on is that there is no such thing anymore as an advertising agency. You go back to the days of Mad Men, those were ad agencies.
Good old days.
Yep. But now we are all full service agencies.
Speak for yourself, Larry.
And I think what I'd like to do is
Cary and I wouldn't be here if that were the case.
That's true. And we embrace that. What I'd like to do is have maybe each of you take one or two divisions that full service Marcom agencies now possess. Talk about how your agency handles that, whether it's web or PR or social digital advertising. So let's see, David, you haven't spoken in a while. Why don't you start off?
Well, I mean, we have a very, very strong media planning, buying, negotiating division that's driven by research. And that's, that's where we make our investment, because the research, the data tells you everything. And there isn't a whole lot to tell. I mean, it's really trench work. I mean, it's really ready, aim, fire kind of work. You don't go off on your instinct. I mean, if I had a buck for every client that said, well, why are you proposing this? I'm making this up, but WTOP, my wife doesn't listen to WTOP. Well, your wife's not in the target audience, So that is really very detailed. It's like writing a master's thesis. When we were done with a plan that includes media considered and recommended and why, and media considered and not recommended and why, we have a book that literally lays out why this is the best course of action. And I'm really proud of that. Elliot Dahlberg's my partner, and he's a good man, and he's also really one of the most respected media planners and buyers in the city now. He's earned it because he's 100 years old. But and honestly, one of the challenges, because we are a little older, is we had to go back and really learn and understand digital marketing and social media, not just what it could deliver, but how to plan it, how to bring it into the mix so that it was effective and without being too much or too little, honestly, in the balance. So that's what I'm proud of, among other things.
And that goes right back to the roots of traditional advertising is media. What about web design? Who wants to take that one on?
Well, the thing about web design, Steve, as you know, is everybody who comes out of college believes that they're a web designer and knows everything that needs to be done. And a lot of companies, particularly young companies, will use that guy working in his basement that we have to compete against with our overhead, okay? And so we don't go out and sell websites. What we do is websites to us are just part of the overall marketing campaign. It's the heart of the marketing campaign because you're directing people to that website. So it's got to be easy to use and easy to navigate and resonate with the audiences. But, there are too many websites. American Eagle, okay? You hear they're advertising on TV now and everywhere. Who's going to compete with that, So it's got to be part of an integrated program.
And of course, Sage has a department that does that. PR is huge. I can talk about that forever, but let me throw that over to Cary because you guys do PR.
So the role of PR has changed over the years. I mean, really the guardrails are off. We look at things holistically and have a candid conversation about what success looks like and what disciplines are necessary to get there. So when you also add into that mix the role of social media, as well as paid and earned media, you've got a dynamite combination. So we have found that it's a really successful 1-2 punch in terms of advancing brands. I just want to also put a plug in there for something that we've been doing for about 10 years now. It's partnerships around strategic events. Generally, in our case, it's sports marketing events, a little bit in your area, Steve. We do a great deal of sponsorships and partnerships with the Nats and the Washington football team and the Caps and DC United. So having access to their channels as part of a media outreach and the PR and event promotion makes for a very, very powerful experiential outreach to consumers. So that's another part of this evolution. But PR, absolutely, it's part of the conversation more than ever.
Right. And you touched on social media. And of course, social media is a very different animal than traditional PR. And there are a whole lot of ways to do social media, whether it's, infiltrating, existing platforms, or whether it's, creating your own post schedule, or whether you serve as a consultant to the client. Beth, do you guys focus on social media a lot?
Yeah, I think one of the things that's really interesting about our business, and it's a thread that I've heard from my fellow panelists as well, is that, we as marketers and agency people, we used to be organized in various discipline areas and departments, like the creative department, the social media team, and the PR department, and the web development department. And what has changed over the years of evolution in our business is that now we really have to think like the customer does, the way a customer would go through a journey of an interaction with a brand. And so I think that it kind of changes the way agencies work with clients. And definitely, if I were in it as a startup, I would be thinking, if I had to invest in one thing, I would say invest in understanding your customer and mapping out the journey that that customer is going to have with your organization from the very time they hear of you until they become a customer and an advocate for your organization. And throughout that entire journey, it takes a lot of brilliant minds that come together who have expertise in all of these discipline areas that we mentioned today. So what used to be a creative team that was defined by a copywriter and an art director, now it takes a whole team of people thinking about a brand holistically, as Cary was saying, like from all different perspectives, to really guide that customer through those interactions with your brand so that you're ultimately achieving those measurable outcomes, like engaging and sharing on social, and actually, going to fill your cart and purchase. And then after that experience, sharing that experience and going to customer service, whether it's with a positive or a negative. There's so many aspects of what we do now that really, that have changed the silos and the walls within a company. And certainly when you're thinking as you're starting your own businesses, I think it's really important to map that out.
I'd like to add to that, if I may. First of all, I see where, time is getting short. So I do want to say that I'm really happy to know you guys. I look at you as friends, and too bad we don't get to see each other more than once or twice a year. But you're all real true professionals in this field. But getting back to the PR thing, every discipline has a different reason for using it. Okay, to us, PR and social media is more than half of the size of our agency, or half of the people working it. So we do it great. We hone this for our kind of clients down to a real science and using social media. And, we're doing it for major Fortune 50 corporations, okay? And it's working really well. And I love to hear the praise the clients give us. But the thing is that social media, PR, is great for building brand awareness. It's great for building credibility, third-party credibility. And it's great for building thought leadership. And if you want to sell a complex technology solution in artificial intelligence or cybersecurity, you've got to be a thought leader. And this is what we do. We make our clients thought leaders. We rise their brand. We elevate the brand above the competition, okay? It's a very confusing marketplace. Our clients anyway, very confusing to the buyers. They don't know one thing from another for the most part. But we try to simplify the messages. We try to really hone in on what really matters to the customer. What is the value and the benefit that you're bringing to me? And and we're the thought leader in this, so we know how to talk to you, and we know your problems, and we can come to you with solutions. That's what PR does. Thank you. And
and good night. Right.
The other two disciplines that that we haven't really discussed are collateral material and event management. And who's best to talk about event management? Okay, I'll take that one. Events are always a great way to support your advertising, marketing, messaging, and also to give back to the community. Things like running races, galas, charity fundraisers. That's a real important part of the communication process. And every one of us does that. And we do that for our clients based on need. The pandemic notwithstanding, we've all learned, and here's that word again, we've all learned to pivot and come up with ways to do things virtually when it comes to events. And collateral material production is still important. David, do you want to talk about that real quickly?
We're involved in that now. We do a lot of work for CoStar Group, which also owns apartments.com and a number of other companies. And I was amazed when I got in there how much there's digital collateral, brochureware that can be put online and downloaded, but there's an amazing amount of direct mail is coming back. Because what happened was direct mail was was that Larry saying absolutely?
yes, absolutely.
God bless you, my son. So I mean, the point is that it used to be when you sent out an email, there wasn't anything conflicting with it in somebody's inbox, and it got a great response from the right audience. Now the response rate to even when you've opted in, because opt-in is such a fuzzy word now because lists are sold, the opt-in lists are sold, the response rate is below 1% on emails. And so direct mail, which takes more to produce, more money, more time, more postage, all of that, it goes out, still can take 4 to 6 weeks to give you your sum total result, is actually becoming a better way into people's consciousness. Particularly, we do a lot of dimensional mail, so that when it lands in the inbox, it's not others, a pile of unsolicited mail, but what the hell is that in my inbox? And that gets a lot of opens and a lot more response. So, and I like collateral. We did a ton of collateral for Sprint and for MCI back in the day, and Nextel back in the day, which died when the internet really became much more efficacious for getting things out into people's inboxes. But now we've got clients coming to us with, we're doing all kinds of dimensional mail again. So I like it. I think collateral is great, and really collateral lets your creative people really be creative, not just with the look and the design and all that, but even with how the paper is worked and the kinds of paper. And it's a lot more tactile and artistic, I think, way of getting a message out. I like it.
Well, guys, we covered a lot of ground in the last hour. I hope everybody watching and participating and attending enjoyed it as much as I know the 5 of us did. I want to thank my colleagues, Beth, Cary, David, and Larry for agreeing to jump on board this week. And I hope that you folks out there, again, got as much as we did out of it. Jenna, can I turn it back to you now?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much to everyone, Steve, Larry, David, Cary, and Beth, for this really exciting, interesting talk. Larry, I think you said it best, that you guys really are true professionals in this field, and it's really great to be able to learn from you. Thank you to everyone for showing up today. We have an exciting talk coming up in the next hour, Women Entrepreneurship for Social Good, which should be really great. And that's starting at 5 p.m. We also have a virtual networking happy hour at 5 p.m. if you'd be interested in that as well. So thank you again, everyone, so much, and have a great rest of your afternoon.